Good afternoon. My name is Rayyan El Amin. I am the Assistant Director here at the Assam Faris Institute. I have the honor of introducing His Excellency Ambassador Aftab Ahmad Kokar today, who is the Ambassador of Pakistan to Lebanon and also to Cyprus currently. He will be speaking about Pakistan's foreign policy and looking at the challenges and opportunities in this coming phase. I'll read a little bit about some of the ambassador's background. He has extensive foreign policy background, so I won't be reading his full CV, but I'll be just highlighting a few things. And then we'll have about half an hour presentation, lecture approximately, and enough time to have a discussion afterwards. So with that, a little bit about the ambassador's background. He has a Master's of Science from the London School of Economics, an MBA and an MA from Punjab University in Pakistan. He has had extensive foreign policy and foreign service experience. Currently the ambassador of Pakistan to Lebanon and Cyprus. Previously, from 2003 to 2015, he was the Consul General in Saudi Arabia to Pakistan. And he had been the Senate Secretariat at the Parliament in Islamabad, dealing with Senate relations with other parliaments. Between 2004 and 2010, he was the Deputy Permanent Representative for the Permanent Mission of Pakistan in Geneva, where he was dealing with issues around disarmament, environment, human rights, and other administrative issues. So those are just some highlights of His Excellency's background, and please help me welcome His Excellency, Ambassador.
Thank you so much for your warm welcome. To begin with, I am grateful to Dr. Tariq Mitri for his gracious support and hospitality, which enabled me to come here to share some of foreign policy of Pakistan's perspectives with you. But before that, I have a small video just to introduce Pakistan. It's a 1.5 minutes video.
As a little girl, I dreamt of becoming an Egyptian archaeologist. Little did I know that I would eventually live my dream as a world traveler. And settle down in a region very different from the one I dreamt about. Previously identified by some indices as a frontier market, for the past few years I have been advocating that this country, that I choose to call my second home, is a vital, re-emerging market. So set aside politics and everything you've heard in the media. I invite you to join me as we view this country and its people through a different lens. Welcome to Emerging Pakistan.
Thank you so much. This was a brief introduction and invitation to you to visit Pakistan and see for yourself what is Pakistan all about and what does it offer. So the topic I've selected is Pakistan's emerging economy, but with a focus on foreign policy, what are its determinants, what are the challenges, and what opportunities we have. So the sequence will be a brief introduction, and then I'll go share with you our history, then Pakistan's overview, governing system, again foreign policy perspective, and then what are the basics, principles, foundations of our policy, achievements, challenges, and then this small part focusing on China-Pakistan relationship, and at the end I will briefly share Pakistan-Lebanese relationship. This is a general perspective about foreign policy, that it said foreign policy has to be a dynamic process, it's not a static process, and it should reflect, and it reflects in reality, the domestic strengths and weaknesses, as well as it responds to the global regional events. And every country defines its core interests and values as a guiding principle to formulate its policy, and then you have to respond to the events happening inside the country and in your neighborhood and at the global level. So this is the location of Pakistan. If you look, Pakistan is, we call it strategically located. It's a hub for a number of countries. We are a route with access to Afghanistan, to Central Asia, to Iran, to China, and one day to India also, once we resolve our differences, which we always aspire to resolve all the disputes, particularly the Kashmir dispute. This location is important to understand Pakistan's foreign policy. History. Pakistan's experience, that why Pakistan's dream came into reality. 35 Act is an important milestone when the people living in subcontinent, they decided to have independence from the British rule. And this was the first test for those people in the subcontinent to rule by themselves on the basis of democratic norms. So 35 Act gave the opportunity to the government by the people of subcontinent. And the Muslims realized that they cannot survive, they cannot live under this system which will be dominated by Hindu majority, and they will always be as a secondary citizen. So that is the moment of decision. And 23rd March 1940 was the day when they passed a resolution that the movement for Pakistan will be launched as an independent country. So Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Jinnah, the founder, he was, before this development, was in favor of independence from the British as a united country. But then he realized Muslims should have a separate homeland. And then 7 years struggle led to an independent Pakistan on 14th August 1947. So this is Pakistan today, what we have Pakistan. It's 6th most popular country, and the youth part is a bigger part. So 85 million people, they are under 19. 9th largest English-speaking country, 2nd largest Muslim country, functioning democracy, a responsible neutral state, independent judiciary, vibrant media, and a very active civil society. And we have 9 million diaspora living across the globe, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and America. So governing system of Pakistan, so just you should understand how does Pakistan functions. We are parliamentary democracy based on 2 houses. Upper house, which is called Senate, lower house is called National Assembly. National Assembly has 341 seats, and we will go into elections in the month of July in 2 months. So if you look at the seats allocation is on the basis of population. Punjab is the biggest province, so it can determine the policy of Pakistan if they have the majority. But in order to counter that, there's an upper house called Senate, where every province is equally represented. So every legislation has to be adopted by the both houses. So Senate has the control over the legislation. It can deter, it can prevent the dominance of a bigger province on the basis of population. So this is what I think in Lebanon, you talk about Taif Accord, and which provides you to have a Senate in Lebanon, to have this kind of balancing house. Hope one day you will have it. Foreign policy. So first of all, the vision of Quaid Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This was the guideline given to the rulers of Pakistan, to the civil bureaucracy of Pakistan, to the military bureaucracy of Pakistan. So the key element is no aggressive designs. We are not taking any offensive actions against anybody. Then promotion of peace and prosperity among all nations. And we should respect the international system, which is United Nations. So then he said peace within. So if you are peaceful within the country, you will have peace outside. So you reach out to the neighboring countries, to the other friends, as a messenger of peace. Then we have a constitution, Article 40 clearly defines what should be our foreign policy. These are the main features of the Article 40 of the Constitution of Pakistan. So the fundamental is relationship among Muslim countries. Then we should have peaceful neighborhood. These are the principles. Non-interference, that is the key element. And in the coming slides, when we talk about Yemen, we talk about other crises, this is the principle which we have been following, that non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. Peaceful settlement of disputes. This is our approach. Objectives, again, I will not but if you go down, it's the resolution of Kashmir dispute is the cornerstone of Pakistan's foreign policy, because South Asia is suffering from instability, and we need to resolve this issue to have a stable region, to have a prosperous region, to have a peaceful relationship. And other element is nuclear parity. Of course, Pakistan cannot compete in conventional armed forces, but nuclear field is where both countries are at parity, and we will maintain that parity in the coming decades, years as well. This is a little about what Pakistan has contributed to the global peace and stability. First, after independence, we were the champions for end of colonialism. I put example of Algeria. Algerian struggle for independence is, I think, a success. Part of success goes to Pakistan. We provided the platform to the Algerian nationals. Even we issued, they were traveling on Pakistani passports to promote their cause, to promote their independence. That's one contribution. Then the visit of President Nixon to China, that was facilitated by Pakistan to a very quiet shuttle, confidential visit by Kissinger from Islamabad to Beijing. And that led to opening of China and end of Vietnam War. So once there was relationship between US and China, Vietnam War ended. Then the second turning point in the global history is 1979, when Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and Pakistan was at the forefront. So that led to the freedom of Central Asian republics. US emerged as the sole global power, and Soviet Union was dismantled, and it emerged. There were consequences for Pakistan. Why? Had the international community continued to engage in a constructive manner in Afghanistan and not left overnight, situation would have been different. So Pakistan paid the price for that sudden withdrawal of international forces from Afghanistan. This was narcotics, drugs, terrorism, and we are paying that prices. 5 million refugees we hosted. Today we have 3 million refugees. So you can relate as Lebanese refugees burden on Lebanon. And then Pakistan, since 1979, we are hosting 3 million refugees. Then war against terror, 9/11. Again, Pakistan was at the forefront. We joined the international community and we fought this war. Again, the price paid by Pakistan. American aid, they claimed that Pakistan was provided big aid. It was $18 billion. But our economy suffered more than $100 billion of loss due to this war on terror, which was fought on the behalf of international community. This is another picture of Pakistan's contribution to the international peace and stability. UN peacekeeping operation is a very important part, and we have been playing our role very effectively, very positively. Since 1960, 150,000 personnel have been participating in the peacekeeping missions, and we have suffered 146 people lost their lives. In case of Lebanon, we don't have any military presence, but we have presence on the political side, and Imran Raza is a political head. He is our representative, he is our contribution to the peace and stability for Lebanon. Challenges for Pakistan. So foreign policy has, as I mentioned in the beginning, to respond to the global scenario, to the regional scenario. So if we look at the world order, it is in transition from a unipolar world to multipolar scenario. But again, there are questions, there are debates, whether we have really a multipolar world, that we will see in the coming slides. So US supremacy is being is being challenged by rising China and resurging Russia. That's again challenge for foreign policies of other countries. Then global erosion in military and economic strength of the sole superpower. Replacement by other regional blocs, like if you look at EU, it's not as a military political power, but in terms of economic strength, is a very big power on the global scene. China and Russian collaboration, again, ASEAN is emerging as a bloc. Then there's a change in the behavior of powers, and that, as a developing country, we have to respond to those changes. Tension between them affects the foreign policy of other countries, and Pakistan is one of them. Manifestations of conflict between the superpowers is, look at Afghanistan, presence of NATO forces, but they have not been able to achieve their targets, and the blame is being put on Pakistan. Syria, you know much better than me what is happening. Palestine, Korean Peninsula, we had a hope, but again, the latest news is that there's a hurdle. There will be hurdles, but we hope that Korean Peninsula will be nuclear-free. There's a long way to go for that. There are regional tensions in South Asia, as mentioned earlier. I'll repeat it again. South Asia is a big region, and where we have India and Pakistan, the resolution of Kashmir issue. Middle East, Palestine, Syria, Iraq, we have challenges. Asia Pacific, again, China is emerging. China is challenging the US power, and US is trying to contain that emerging China through proxies, through their other countries. What are the indicators of US power decline? One is lack of success, I mentioned, in Afghanistan, DPR case, then isolated withdrawal from nuclear deal with Iran. The whole international community is committed to the deal, only US has withdrawn. Then the Donald phenomena, as you know, that he's assertive, he's isolated, he's uncertain, unpredictable. Like we got a gift on the 1st of January as a New Year gift, that a message for Pakistan on tweet that we need to do this and this, otherwise Pakistan will be responsible for consequences. But we have responded in a very passionate, very composed manner that we need to engage in dialogue. Last week, we imposed sanctions on the US diplomats as a reciprocal measure. Again, reciprocal measure, that they imposed sanctions on our diplomats that they cannot travel outside Washington, outside 25 kilometers without permission. The same restrictions on the US diplomats in Islamabad. So that is the way to deal with USA. Then deepening of Sino-Russian relationship. That's a very important. They have come up with an organization, SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is coming up as a counter measure to counterpower to the US dominance. Then we see erosion of US influence in the World Bank, G7, because now we have a counter institutional framework coming up, which is in the form of G20. Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Mr. Aisha Faddin will know better than me that how it is coming up, and China is presenting its currency as a way of transaction to do commerce with the countries. But we also need to look at passionately whether it is true that US is a declined power. But this decline is still very effective. It has still that muscle and power to influence foreign policy of other countries. It has allies, powerful allies, which I will show in the coming slides, through which it can dominate the world again. and its decline will be slower. It controlled media. There is no denial to that reality. Leading military power still, its innovation, advancement, technological, no other country can match its innovative capability. That is only due to the immigrants residing in USA. Then it's still a leading military power, particularly in the naval field. Look at this slide. It gives you the top 15 countries, and USA is far ahead in terms of military expenditure. This is the Global Innovation Index, Intellectual Property Organization has come up with. US is at 4, UK 3, France 18, Germany. This is on one side is US and its allies, and the other side is the competing forces, competing countries. China at 25, Russia 43, India 78, Pakistan 119. So still they have that potential to control, to dominate the global politics. This is the dominance of US in IMF and its allies. But our conclusion is that we are not in a world which will be dominated by one power or two powers. It will be interdependence. It will be an interpolar world where there will be alliances on the basis of issues, not like in the past, blind alliances, that if you are on this side, you are opposed to the other side. Now we are seeing countries are collaborating with each other on different issues. They are together on one issue, they are on the opposing side on the other issues. Then China, Russia, we have spoken. Common position on global issues like terrorism. The whole international community is united. There's no difference of opinion on terrorism, but only how to fight it. What are your priorities? This is another reflection of interdependence. How much US and China are dependent on each other in terms of trade. This is the imports from China. It has crossed Japan. So whatever Trump wants to achieve, you can imagine it's difficult to get rid of this Chinese imports. This is Chinese foreign direct investment into US. It's growing. So what will happen if China decides to withdraw? But China will not withdraw because it will be detrimental to its own interests. So all these factors have an impact. So we'll come to South Asia, which is the region of Pakistan. We have two major economic powers, India and China, in the region. So anything happening at the global level will impact the attitude, the policies of these two countries. Then we have emerging polarity. What has happened? India is moving towards the US. India, which was considered to be an ally, a close associate of Soviet Union, Russia, now it's moving towards USA. And Pakistan is moving towards China. At one time, we were part of defense pacts for USS Ito Center, if you have any memory, in 60s, 70s. We were part of those military alliances. But now, there's a shift towards China. And then, of course, China-Indian relationship is again facing difficulties. Although both countries, they are conscious of that conflict will not be productive, will not be useful, beneficial to both of them. They're trying to avoid, but tensions are there. Same, talked about US-Pakistan relations. This is the worst time, but we are hopeful that with the passage of time, with the engagement between the two sides, we will be able to overcome the differences and we will be back to the track. What is South Asia? We have successful examples for regional integration, ASEAN, EU, but South Asia is suffering from lack of this integration. And we are paying the price due to lack of development, to lack of regional connectivity. That is where we need to focus. The cost of trade is very high between the two countries. And the reasons is that Indian hegemonistic designs, they are small states which have to suffer at the hands of Indian offensive designs. Then we cannot resolve our differences on the platform of a regional association called SAARC. Unresolved Kashmir issue. This is again, we are talking about the Indian mindset because that is an important facet to learn, to understand foreign policy of Pakistan. If we don't look at it, we cannot understand the reasons of Pakistan's foreign policy. because there is massive build-up of Indian arms. Of course, India is a big country population-wise, 5 times, 6 times. But we need to study where the focus, where the deployment is. It's on borders with Pakistan. So if the utilization of the arms is on the borders with Pakistan, it means Pakistan has to prepare itself. Pakistan has to respond to it. That is why our nuclear program was purely in response to the Indian initiatives, Indian offensive designs. This is a comparison between the two countries. You can have a look at it. Defense expenditure and forces between the two countries. Now, with us, we are also having a big problem on our western borders with Afghanistan. So our deployment is not India-specific. In the past, it used to be 90%, 95% deployment was on Indian borders. Now we are equally focused on western borders, which is a bigger threat coming. This is Kashmir as a flashpoint in South Asia. Resolution of Kashmir is a gate to development of the region, to peace and stability of the region. So the basic issue is right of self-determination. And we have UN Security Council resolutions. It's not an issue between the two countries. Of course, it can be resolved through dialogue between the two countries, but it's part of the international agenda. UN Security Council has been passing resolutions since 1948, and it's calling for referendum, calling for a plebiscite to be a right given to the people of Kashmir to decide their future. And recently we have witnessed a wave of revival of the struggle, and the way Indian government, Indian forces have responded, and the struggle and number of casualties, more than 100 people have lost their life, and there's ongoing severe measures against the people of Kashmir. Afghanistan, that's another region where we are having a big potential, big possibility for collaboration, for development. But again, what is the barrier between Central Asia and Pakistan and Afghanistan? If we have peaceful Afghanistan, there will be access to Central Asia, not only for Pakistan, for international community. That is where we need to resolve Afghanistan. But what we are seeing in Afghanistan, the failure of military approach of NATO forces, lack of political approach is the only reason. And the people of Afghanistan need this solution yesterday, not today, even yesterday. They have suffered a lot since 1979. They need this peace and stability. But what we are witnessing is the opposite. You know about the US decision to increase their forces. I hope they will realize that military solution is not the way to go forward in Afghanistan. It's a political solution to be decided by the people of Afghanistan. What we are suffering, that the land of Afghanistan is being utilized by other forces which are not under the control of Afghan government. So they are using Afghanistan to create, to undertake activities, sabotage inside Pakistan, to disrupt the model development graph of Pakistan, which is more than 5% in 2017. Luckily, with Afghanistan, we have been able to resolve the difference, and we have established a framework, which is recently, 3 days ago, we had fourth round of bilateral consultation, which is called Afghanistan-Pakistan Action Plan for Peace and Solidarity. And this has provided a framework for long-term sustained engagement between the two countries. And we are hopeful that in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, we will see positive trajectory between Pakistan and Lebanon, Pakistan and Afghanistan, sorry. I'm overwhelmed with Lebanon. Iran is another neighbor of Pakistan. We have to live with our neighbors. Iran is a friendly neighbor, and Iran's foreign policy is affected by its relationship, not relationship, but how the US is responding to it, and its rivalry with Saudi Arabia. Pakistan has always approached the tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran in a neutral manner. That, in the beginning, I said non-interference. Both Saudi Arabia and Iran are friends of Pakistan. We are Muslim countries. We are member of the OIC. So we cannot afford to have a biased or taking side on each side. So former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif visited Saudi Arabia and Iran to play a role of bridge between the two countries. So this is what we will continue, that we will call on both of them to resolve their differences on the table. Again, Iran-India, some experts are projecting Iran-India relationship as a counter to Pakistan-China relationship. But we look at the other way. We consider that any collaboration between the two countries for development is good for the region. So if we can have regional connectivity, whether it be through India-Iran collaboration, through Pakistan-China, ultimately region will benefit. And the port of Chahabar is not a replacement, it's a supplement to the recently developed port of Pakistan, Gwadar Port. Another project, Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline, we are still hopeful. Iran-Pakistan are working in this project. Maybe in the coming years we will add India as well, add India back to this. Initially it was a plan between the two countries, but now it's between Iran and Pakistan. So what are our strengths? What are the strengths of Pakistan which can turn these challenges into opportunities? Location, I mentioned the location of Pakistan is positive. We are a connection between China to the Middle East and Africa to Europe and other way around. We can serve as a regional fulcrum of regional market, that we can be a transit for trade between the countries, between the neighbors. Again, neighborhood with India and China is an opportunity which can be turned into a development model if we have resolution of the conflicts between Pakistan and India. We have received very positive reviews by international financial institutions, independent, that Pakistan's economy is growing, and by 2020 the target is the growth rate will be 7% plus. So that you can translate that what will be the impact of this growth rate on Pakistan, on the region. We have 960 kilometer coastline. I've come up later on this, the project of CPEC. It's called China-Pakistan Economic Project. TAPI is Turkmen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran pipeline. IPI, Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline. CASA is an energy project with the Central Asian republics. These are the different ratings given by different agencies, and you can do the Google search and look at yourself. And in terms of our security, our defense, our armed forces are the 5th largest armed forces globally. And we are capable to defend ourselves and to ensure that nobody can be harmful for Pakistan. Soft power of Pakistan. What is the soft power? Our culture, diversified. Like Lebanon, we have diversity of people, of ideas, of languages. We are moderate, progressive people. It's a wrong image created by a part of the media that Pakistan is very conservative. No. If you travel to Pakistan, you can experience yourself what is Pakistan all about. We are home to old civilizations, Gandhara civilization, Taxila. It's gateway world religion, Islam, Sikhism, Buddhism. If you go to these ancient sites, you will find that Pakistan was the place for these religions. Rich in tourism. The first video in the beginning I shared with you that shows what tourism opportunities we have. The diaspora of Pakistan, 9 million Pakistanis living across the globe. People who are working in the Middle East, they know the potential, the strengths of Pakistani people working there. Policy challenges. After all these strengths, global scenario, domestic security situation, which today, alhamdulillah, I can claim that it has improved a lot. The number of terrorist incidents happening today is much less than it was in the past. Now, cities are back to the normal life and Pakistan's economy is back on track. stagnant. It's a global impact that economy has gone slow, and we have to face that because we cannot be isolated from that impact. So then Indo-US Afghan covert war is a big threat, a big challenge for us. The Afghan land is being utilized against Pakistan. So we need to be watchful. We have our legitimate interests in Afghanistan. If other countries far away from Afghanistan can have interest in Afghanistan, Pakistan has its legitimate interests, and we will protect those interests. Then I will not talk about India's Gold Stars doctrine. It's about a sudden attack in Pakistan, and we are fully capable to defend that, to counter that. And then US policy in Afghanistan, that it looks at Pakistan through Afghanistan, which is a wrong approach. Pakistan should be looked as an independent state, and Pakistan be a partner for peace and stability, for a solution in Afghanistan, and it cannot be an adversary in Afghanistan. If that is the approach, there will be a failure again like in the past. We have talked about Indian design, and on Kashmir issue, we are ready to solve this issue through a dialogue. We had this dialogue in the past. It was going very smoothly, a composite dialogue covering all issues, but it was stopped. So we hope one day they will resume that. This is CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Project. So initially, we have started this project with $46 billion, which $33 billion for the energy projects, $7 billion for the road infrastructure, and the remaining part is the development of Gwadar Port. So if you look at 3 corridors, it is connecting China with the port of Pakistan. I'll share it with you in the next slide. This is the port of Pakistan. So you look at the connectivity opportunities it will provide, and that is where we have our advantage. So road network is being developed, railway lines are being laid out to connect this port with China, and of course, it will be available to other countries as well. Now, at the end, I will just briefly share Pakistan-Lebanon relations. We have a lot of things common we share with each other. Civilizations, multi-faith societies like Lebanon, we also have believers of different faiths. And we strongly believe that coexistence is the only way to have a peaceful life. We have a long history of relations. Our support to the Lebanese armed forces is continuing through training programs. We offer long-term and short-term training courses every year to the Lebanese armed forces, and we will continue to do so. We are a member of UN and OIC, and we share common positions on the issues of Palestine and Kashmir. Habib Bank of Pakistan is one of the rather biggest bank in Pakistan. It has its operations in Lebanon. So this is a readily available window of collaboration with Pakistan for businessmen in Lebanon to do business with Pakistan. You don't have to go to any other place. Habib Bank is there to assist you. We have this framework of collaboration which is very strong, and we don't have to invent any new initiative. If we implement these agreements, we will be able to increase our trade, which is at a very low level. I am embarrassed to share with you, it's 20 million plus. It should be more than that. And I hope that in the coming months, years, we will achieve that target. The trade between the two countries matches its potential. Thank you so much. And
thank you very much for that wide-ranging presentation. There's a lot of topics I'm sure people might have questions about. We'll open up the floor for a group of questions, and then we'll come back to the ambassador to respond to maybe 2 or 3 at a time. So With that, I'll open up the floor. Yes, Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your remarks. My name is Ali Ahmad, and I work here at the Institute. You mentioned Pakistan's policy with regards to Iran and Saudi Arabia, and you describe it as a neutral policy. Given the increased tension and hostility between these two countries and potential escalation of events, what would trigger Pakistan to reconsider this policy? And also related to that, I'm sure this question has been asked to Pakistan's diplomacy 1,000 times regarding the nuclear weapons program and its link to Saudi Arabia. My question is not about perhaps the transferring the bomb, which I think is a ridiculous claim or question, but more about transferring expertise. What is Pakistan's position for such a thing? Thank you.
Can I respond?
Let's see if there's another question or two, and then we'll come back. Yes, this gentleman? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. This is Dr. Gassam Boudiab. I'm a journalist, a university instructor. I was thinking, like, we heard much about Kashmir and the continuous conflict in Kashmir. Still, the Indian government usually claims that what's happening is that because there are certain extremists, Jaish Muhammad and Al-Mujahideen and others, that are being supported in a way or another to do what's going on. By the way, 22 hours ago, they were ceasefire because of Ramadan in that border. Why don't the government of Pakistan consider the agreement that was signed by the Kashmirian themselves, like they want to be part of this or that? What's exactly there? I mean, what permits or prevents the resolution of this 50 years old or more conflict? Thank you.
We'll take one more question, and then we'll come back to the ambassador, if that's okay. Yes, right over here.
Thank you, Ambassador. My name is Digambar Patra. I am a chemistry. I am interested because some of my colleagues are Pakistani. I have a collaborator from Lahore and University of Chicago. I'm always curious. I have two questions, basically. One related to Pakistan. As per the Indian statistics, half of the terrorists, as per Indian government, killed are Pakistanis. And this is why I think the foreign policy between Western world and Pakistan also deteriorated, and Pakistan is moving more towards China. But that is also interesting. If you look at recently, Pakistan is focusing more towards China. But at the same time, China is also inclined towards India. And I was reading the business trade between China and India is about $100 billion, which is almost 40% of Pakistan GDP. And maybe China is just playing at this moment. And if you look at after the tension between China and US, the Chinese president specially invited Indian Prime Minister, and they had a personal interaction, and they are going to support each other in Afghanistan, which will be against maybe Pakistan interest. I'm trying to be neutral here. So how you comment it? I think Pakistan foreign policy is more dependent on other country rather than independent like China or US or any country you can say.
Thank you very much. First question, Dr. Ali, Saudi Arabia. So, as you rightly said, that shifting of nuclear weapons is absurd. And the second scenario which you are building up, transfer of know-how expertise, that is out of question. Why? Because Pakistan believes in respecting the international laws, international norms. So Saudi Arabia, as a member of Non-Proliferation Treaty, is obliged not to have this technology. Similarly, Pakistan is not a party to NPT. Our nuclear program is very legal. and we stand by that. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has a defense pact, okay? And it's a public policy that we are committed to the defense of Saudi Arabia. And that doesn't mean that we transfer nuclear weapons or know-how to them. We are capable to fulfill our obligations without the nuclear weapons when it comes to the defense of Saudi Arabia. The triggering to review our policy as a neutral, I think it will never happen that we will be taking a policy to support one country against the other. Our approach will continue to be to a mediator, to a neutral actor, to convey a message that conflict between the two is detrimental to their national interests as well as to the interests of Muslim Ummah. So that is on this. Nuclear weapons is a bigger debate, and we have very robust command and control system, which is, I think we can claim, parallel to any international standards. And our peaceful energy program is under complete total supervision of IAEA. So there has been not a single complaint by IAEA that we have violated that. But whereas we have examples of other countries that they have violated. This India-US deal is a clear violation of NPT. But it happened. That is power politics. But so far Pakistan is concerned, we are fully respectful to our obligations under international law. Second question about Kashmir. And I think one question here, also Kashmir, so I'll club the two questions. Kashmir issue is what? We need to understand. It's an international UN recognized dispute, and the UN Security Council resolutions calls for a solution which we are committed till today. That the people of Kashmir, they should be given the right, they should be right to have the option whether to join India or Pakistan. If you look at the division formula of the subcontinent in 1947, that Muslim majority areas were to be formed part of Pakistan and the others of India. There were some states like Kashmir, princely states. Those states, they were given the right to go through election, through referendum, to declare their decision, which has not happened in case of Kashmir. That is the political, legal basis of Kashmir issue. Now talking about terrorists going from Pakistan, that is totally incorrect. Because it's more of a propaganda, not a real issue. The government of Pakistan has always offered its assistance whenever there was incident, and the first blame in incidents in India, the first blame comes to Pakistan. And we offered our assistance. If you name the Samjhauta Express, a very popular and famous incident, it was done by the Indian nationals. It was agreed, accepted, acknowledged by the Indian experts. So the nexus goes back to India, not to Pakistan. But propaganda goes on, which we are countering and we will continue to counter. What is happening, that it's the other way around, that there is state terrorism sponsored by India against Pakistan. We arrested an Indian naval serving officer, Kulbhushan Yadav, and he admitted and he admitted that he has played that role in different terrorism activities in Pakistan. So that is a comparison between the two sides. I will be ready to engage with you if you come up with some concrete examples that where, of course, statement can be issued, but what is the evidence? China, India, yes, I mentioned in my presentation also that both sides, they are not crossing that point of going to an open conflict because of interdependence, not only between China and India, but globally. China, USA, India, China, China, Russia, EU, China. So that interdependence prevents an open conflict. And Chinese-Indian collaboration will not be detrimental to Pakistan. If it happens, we believe it will be productive, it will be positive, it will help to have regional connectivity. And that CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project, if India is connected, it will be a huge hub of commercial activity, and for that we need to resolve issues. We need to build that environment of mutual trust. And of course, we can do that if we have that political will.
Okay, floor's open again. I'll take question over here and then Tariq, and then over there.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, I'm General Michel Mahas. As I could understand from you during your presentation, that you are always playing a mediating role between Saudi Arabia and Iran as Islamic states. Can you tell us, please, about the role that Pakistan is playing in the conflict and the war going on between Saudi Arabia and Yemen? And why don't we see any big influence of Pakistan to stop this war?
Next question over here.
Yes, thank you very much for coming to the AUB. I'm Pakistani as well as a teacher in this institution. And perhaps we could go back to your references to 79, and maybe if I can make a little comment and then come on to a question. People here may not be aware that even the rise of the Takfiri project in Syria, in Iraq, actually has its antecedents very clearly in the occupation of Afghanistan and the funding by Western powers and Pakistan's support for what these forces emerged at that time in the fight against the Soviet Union, and the continuous support by America, Saudi Arabia, France to those forces, and how they then transform themselves into the entities of today. Perhaps you could shed a little bit of light on that. And I have two small questions, but perhaps need a bigger answers. One is that there are people in Pakistan, many of them, who we believe that in a sense the occupation, the continued occupation of Afghanistan and Pakistan's tragic role within the war on terror is actually, without that, the situation could not have happened. They use our roads, our airspace, our ports. To what extent is it, and in fact airfields with the drones that have been dropping, as you know, with the protest movements going on currently, very huge movements, opposition to the policies that have been taking on in the war on terror. To what extent is that now reconfiguring Pakistan's foreign policy with regards, these forces? I know they're complex and very easy to skim over. On the question of Kashmir, really, and I too am my ancestry is Kashmiri, and here recently, there are people in both sides of Kashmir, and I defer to your question, it's very important. There are people on both sides of Kashmir who believe they're occupied by both forces of India and Pakistan. Of course, the level of repression taking place within the Indian side of Kashmir is not on par on the Pakistani side, but recently some people were shot trying to get close to the ceasefire line. That is the line that divides Kashmir between India and Pakistani zones. To what extent would it be in Pakistan's interest not to stop the demonstrators who were unarmed trying to cross the ceasefire line? And perhaps that will give us an opportunity to create a political question. And absolutely final point to my AUB colleague here, who's referring to Pakistan-China trade and the volumes, between Pakistan and China, India and China, just the population increase is greater per night than the population of Lebanon. So we can't really compare the rest of the world on that level.
Okay, one more question over here, please.
Can I respond, because then...
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot on the floor already. And so if I can also ask the others who are going to ask questions to kind of keep them
Yeah.
brief.
Okay.
Please.
Yes, Iran, Saudi, Yemen. Pakistan's role is not and cannot be to impose a solution. Okay. Our role, first of all, in case of Yemen, was that we did not become part of it, right? Our parliament adopted a very clear resolution that Pakistan should not take part in this conflict alongside Saudi Arabia. So there was expectation that Pakistan will provide armed forces. It did not happen. But that point was understood by Saudi Arabia. It was, some people have been commenting that there was some irritant between the two countries. No. We engaged, and I witnessed due to my assignment in Jeddah, I witnessed I was in the meetings where we had dialogue with the Saudi foreign minister. So they understood our point. And that is where Pakistan's role. We told them that we have experience of fight in Afghanistan, that force is not the way to get results. And dialogue and political solution. This is message we gave to them. We are giving them continuously, and we will continue to do so. Dr. Tariq, 79, I think you should come here and speak about it. Yes, you're right. This is what we say, that all those people who were heroes of the West, including Osama bin Laden, they are now terrorists. Who brought Osama bin Laden? Haqqani network, which is, they are asking Pakistan to take action against. They were the guests of the White House. They were treated there as heroes. And it's not hidden, it's an open information that they were treated, they were giving funds. Why the sudden collapse? As I mentioned, that they just withdrew from it. Total disengagement. There was a vacuum. And that vacuum was filled up by forces. I can leave it there. But occupation of Afghanistan, yes, you can say that there was a minority segment of Pakistani establishment. But it has evolved over the time. What we are today saying, and in the past years, that is why we established mechanism, a quadrilateral mechanism with Pakistan, US, China, and Afghanistan. Pakistan, Russia, US, and Afghanistan. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey. Purely that we support Afghan-led process, and it should be intra-Afghan process to decide about Afghanistan. But what we say, that if other countries claim to have any interest in Afghanistan, Pakistan is there to be the first one. But for the solution, we are not in favor of any occupation. We are not in favor of any favoritism of Afghanistan. Let the people of Afghanistan decide what they want. And this recent development of a bilateral framework between Pakistan and Afghanistan is a clear manifestation of the revival of trust between the two countries. We lost that trust for some time, but it's now coming back. And it will be very fruitful for both countries, and hopefully for other powers who are involved, who are engaged in Afghanistan. Kashmir, line of control, which we were saying. Pakistan supported that process, if you recall, that the bus service between the two sides of the line of control for the local communities. We also supported the trade and commerce between the two communities living across the line of control. We still support that. It has to be resumed. People, because they are divided, they should be able to see each other. But it has to be, you cannot clap with one hand. You need two hands, and the other hand is of India, which we are waiting and hopefully it will come one day. When sanity will prevail, there will be a positive thinking. Because right now in India, there's minorities are suffering, not only Muslims. You look at Christians, others, but it's more of a domestic politics. Once there will be, I think, new elections, new phase of dialogue, we hope that. But we are open. We are open for bilateral forum. We are open to international powers if they can play. Rather, we call on those forces to play that role, because it is an obligation of the international community to play that role, because it is an issue recognized by the UN Security Council.
I have a question over here and one in the back.
I'm Professor Abu Haida from University of Toronto. I do a lot of work in collaboration with people in your university in Lahore. And we did, for example, we did, cotton is an important crop in Pakistan. We did cotton plant resistant to all viruses. So I know the country very well. My question is going to be not political, because I'm not a political person. I see the agriculture, in particular in the Punjab, is very huge, is very good, but still way behind. Furthermore, my observation is, in terms of industrial thing, you are also behind in comparison to China on one side, to India on the other side. And I see a problem which is we have in this country, and I want your insight about it, is this corruption. People are corrupt. Government people are corrupt. Any administration is corrupt. Countries like this with corruption, they will never be a superpower or closer to. I'd like to hear your views about it.
I have a question in the back over here. And this will be the last opportunity to ask questions, so please, after that, the floor is open. Yes.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the talk. I wanted to ask, what role does the Pakistani army play in determining the foreign policy, given the fact that they play a decent amount of role in the domestic politics? And if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2013, after a long time, that we actually had a democratic transition directly from one government to another. And I think right now also there are some pending cases or something going around Mr. Nawaz Sharif. So I wanted to know, what role does the army actually play? Because in an ideal situation, they should perhaps be in the backseat and have more of the government deciding the foreign policy. So that's one question. And secondly, with reference to your point on the CPEC, if, as I understand from whatever little knowledge I have, if Kashmir is a disputed territory based on the UN resolutions you highlighted, then how can there be a CPEC project passing through the disputed territory if the solution has not been finalized, whatever is the solution? Because that somehow seems to be counterproductive to Pakistan's argument of promoting the Kashmiri cause, because it's clearly a disputed territory, and I think it somehow is contradictory as to how you understand the aspirations of the Kashmiris. Thank you.
I'm just going to give the last opportunity.
Yeah.
Anybody has any more questions, comments? For the ambassador responds and then has some closing remarks. Okay, please.
Thank you, Professor. You have been visiting Lahore, and I think Pakistan is an agricultural country. And it has moved from purely agricultural country to agro-based industrial country. I agree with you that there's a long way to go to an industrialized, but if you look at from 47 till to 2018, we have covered that distance despite tremendous challenges. We had nothing in 1947. You talk about industry, the agriculture was suffering from. So there's a journey which is ongoing journey, and we will be able to go there one day. This is my conviction, this is my belief, that looking at the developments inside Pakistan, the potential of the people of Pakistan, look at you might have observed their intelligence in the field of IT, engineering. Our nuclear program is purely a domestic strength. The science and technology was purely domestic. So that is a source of satisfaction and hope for future. Corruption. There's no denying fact that corruption has to be countered. But I don't know, I will not agree with your observation that corruption is rampant in Pakistan. No. I come from a very simple family. So I have been able to come up and be part of this government service. Is an indication that I didn't pay anything to anybody. But at the same time, there are measures taken by the second question which we was talking about. You have witnessed a number of cases that has been taken up now by the National Accountability Bureau. Is purely to counter corruption. And we have seen the scenes in the past, and there will be the scenes in the future also. A sitting Prime Minister has been disqualified, as he is facing, the former Prime Minister now, he is facing charges, he goes to the courts daily. That is a reflection of the strength of the system, strength of the fight against corruption. People can say it's political, but he is facing those charges. He is going to the courts every second day. So that is one positive signal, and hope when you visit next time, please let me know. I will introduce you to people. You can have a dialogue with them, and then you can come back with your opinion, and we will share those opinions with you. Thank you. Role of army. I think role of army of Pakistan in the foreign policy is exactly the same which role is being played by Pentagon and CIA in the US foreign policy. They are important part and parcel component of the national decision-making apparatus. Why we say that Pakistan Army is playing role? It is playing its role, which to some they consider is beyond their line, beyond their duty. It is one observation. But we need to look at the overall picture of Pakistan, what kind of challenges it has been facing, what kind of challenges. So that is why we have to interact the security and foreign policy together. It cannot be separated. It cannot be isolated from each other. And it's an evolution process. It is, to look, to some people, it is explicit. We're in the process. One day it will be implicit, like any other countries. But everywhere, armed forces, they are playing an important role in the foreign policy of their countries. Same is true with Pakistan.
Please help me thank the ambassador for coming in today and enlightening us. Thank you very much.